Am I the a-hole for refusing to apologize so I can live with my dad again? I've 16 male been living with my grandparents for the last 4 months. The reason has a lot of background, but I'll make it short. I was bullied a lot by this girl, Sarah, 16, in school. She bullied many of us, from kindergarten on. When I was 9, my dad and Sarah's mom started dating. I felt so betrayed and hurt. Sarah didn't stop bullying. My dad and his, now wife, tried to explain why Sarah was as awful as she was, saying she had lots of trauma. But it didn't change anything for me. Sarah's told me she hopes I end up like my mom, who was left with severe brain damage and needs 24/7 care in a facility. She encouraged another kid to hurt themselves and threatened to unalive someone else. So my dad making her a stepchild was really hurtful to me, and expecting us to be a family felt like a huge betrayal. Around 2 years ago, I went from being terrified of her to hating her. And I really hate her by now. 4 months ago, my dad and his wife told me Sarah was sick and could die. I couldn't even pretend to be upset. My dad's wife said I should be more concerned, and I told her I don't care if Sarah dies. She's made my life hell, and I'd be happier with her out of my life. She started freaking out, claiming I wanted Sarah dead. I told her Sarah isn't a good person and nobody at school will be sad about it. She insisted I needed to leave. My dad was upset and told me he didn't want to lose me, but he didn't approve of what I said. I told him I don't care what he thinks, and that he betrayed me when he brought Sarah into his family. I told him I could never forgive him for it. My dad's wife is okay with me moving back in if I apologize. For the last month, my dad has asked me to apologize so I can live with him again. I said no. I told him I'm not sorry and that none of them deserve an apology. He said he's not choosing them over me, and I told him not now he's not, but he already did when he chose to date Sarah's mom. My dad's wife is angry that I won't apologize. My dad is upset because he wants me back, and Sarah's getting worse and hasn't found a match for a transplant yet. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Your dad should have defended you from the start. He's the instigator of this entire problem. Don't apologize. The dad is definitely the instigator and owes him an apology. Yup, people act like they have to get married and live together. If your kids don't get along, for whatever reason, then just date until the kids are out of the house. What an awful situation, and grown adults put you there through their bad choices. And they are still making those bad choices. Why do they care what you think? What does your presence accomplish? Do they think you will sit and hold her hand to keep her from being bored while sick? Personally, as a parent, I wouldn't want you near her while she is sick and vulnerable. You have every right in the world to treat her as badly as she treated you while she is unable to fight back. And it would be incredibly tempting. I couldn't say that I trust myself in the same situation, but that would hurt you in the long run. I'd want to protect you from your young, angry, and emotionally immature self as much as I could by keeping you away. You don't need that kind of temptation. None of us do. Not the a-hole. My dad hasn't wanted to protect me from Sarah at all, so it doesn't surprise me that he's not interested in doing it now. If he cared about protecting me, he never would have made Sarah his stepdaughter and never would have accepted her as his family. But he did, fully knowing what she was doing to me. I wouldn't wish death on anyone, even my high school bullies. But I understand your pain and frustration at the fact your dad put your well-being and safety aside for the sake of his relationship. If Sarah has a lot of trauma, that's up to her to work through instead of taking it out on the rest of the world. Sarah's basically my lifelong bully at this point. It never stopped, so I would be lying to say I feel bad for her or hope she's okay. I just don't have it in me to feel like that toward her. It's not easy having compassion for those who hurt us. I would say take all the anger and pain you have toward her and let it go, for your own sake. You're stronger than you think you are. You've handled everything so far with much more grace than most people would have. I can't let it go. It took a long time for me to get angry, but I can't just let it go. Maybe when I've had her out of my life for a long time, it can happen. But I'll always have some amount of hate or disdain for her. She's one of the worst people I know, and I have zero compassion or sympathy for her. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom she's allowed to get married again, but it doesn't mean I'll approve? My dad died when I, 26 male, was 17. Now my mom has gotten serious with someone else, a guy my dad worked with. This is a man who hated my dad, and my dad hated him. My mom and I both knew about it. There was bad blood between them for almost 20 years. When my dad died, her future husband was the only person at the job who didn't sign a sympathy card for us, and my dad would have done the same for him. So for me, there's a strong dislike of my mom's choice of partner. But they connected 2 years ago and fell hard for each other. She's excited to marry him and have a future together. She's even talked about sharing grandkids, which made me grimace. I told her that wouldn't happen, and that's when we had a conversation. I told her she can marry whoever she wants, but marrying him is not something I approve of. I said I will not allow him to be a grandfather to my future kids, and I won't try to get close to him. My mom told me that's unfair. I told her she can feel that way, but that man hated my dad, and my dad hated him. There's no part of me that wants him around, but I accept that she does. I told her I've come to terms with her choice of partner, but I want him in my life as little as possible. She told me he's a good man, and yes, it's awkward with his feelings about my dad, but we shouldn't hate him for it, and it's easy to love. I told her I'm not going to love or accept a man who hated my dad. I asked her how we'll handle my dad's presence being a part of my life, especially at my upcoming wedding next year. She told me it won't be easy for him and admitted that a lot of people are already against him because of his and my dad's feud. My mom got upset and said she really wants my approval of him and for him to be accepted as a future grandfather and father-in-law to my fiancé. I told her I'll never stop her from marrying him, but I won't approve. She's angry and upset with me. She said she wants to share her happiness with him and believes she deserves it, even if I don't think he does. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. You told the truth. It's an odd situation. She can be happy. It doesn't mean you have to pretend. Yeah, odd is a good way to describe it. Not the a-hole. Your mom is allowed to find love again, but you're equally allowed to have boundaries about someone who openly disliked your dad and wouldn't even sign a sympathy card when he passed. That's pretty cold. Your response was actually really mature. You're not trying to stop their relationship or marriage. You're just being honest about your own boundaries. You're not obligated to pretend this guy is going to be some loving father figure or future grandpa when he couldn't even show basic human decency when your dad died. The whole sharing grandkids thing is especially wild coming from your mom. She can't force a relationship between her future husband and your kids just because she wants to play happy family. That's not how it works. Also, the fact she's acknowledging it won't be easy for him to handle your dad being mentioned at your wedding is a huge red flag. This guy's beef with your dad was so deep he's uncomfortable with basic respect for the deceased at his own stepson's wedding? Yikes. Stand your ground, OP. You're being way more reasonable than most people would be in this situation. Your mom can marry whoever she wants, but she needs to accept that actions and past behavior have consequences. OP, you never thought to ask your mom, why him? Out of all the men in the world, she had to defile your father's memory with a man she's known for years her beloved husband hated? Something's fishy. Do you think your mom truly loved your father? I know my mom loved my dad, even if it's harder for me to see right now based on her choices. We've talked about it, but I just can't understand. Not the a-hole, but I would talk to the guy. Ask him the hard questions. Why did he sign the card? How does he feel about your mom keeping a picture of your dad displayed at the house so the grandkids can be told stories and memories of their birth grandfather? How has he changed to become a person your mom can love? Maybe ask your mom how she even felt comfortable enough to go on a date with him. What has he done to prove he's not still holding a grudge against your dad? If his answers seem appropriate, I'd agree to holidays and occasional dinners and see how things progress. As a parent, I always believe the more people who love and care for my kids, the better, even if I don't like the people. If they are generally good people, they can be around my kids. If he can't give good answers, F him. I am not interested in talking to him. He isn't welcome in my future kids' lives, even if he loves them. The idea repulses me. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not continuing a relationship with my ex-wife's daughter? My wife of 8 years had an affair with a coworker. I stayed married to her because our daughters had been together since they were 2 and 3. She had an affair with the same guy again, so I threw her out and divorced her. Now, she texts and emails me despite me telling her to leave me alone, begging me to maintain a relationship with her daughter and to allow my daughter to have one with her as well. I've explained to her several times that they aren't sisters and I'm not her daughter's father. Her own father is a POS, so I get it. But that's not my problem anymore. She should have considered the consequences of her actions before doing anything. I was okay with raising a kid that wasn't mine while we were married, but she showed her appreciation for that by cheating. Now, she doesn't get access to me in any capacity. She tells me I'm cruel and heartless because her kid is miserable without us. I told her to ask the guy she cheated on me with to raise her kid. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. It is sad for the kids, but it's better for you to make a clean break so everyone can heal. My dad was married, and I had a stepbrother and stepsister for a while when I was a kid. They divorced, and I never saw them again. I lived. To this day, I don't even think about them or their mom. Not the a-hole. You were there for her daughter while you were married, but after the affair, it's understandable that you want to distance yourself. You're not obligated to keep that relationship going, especially after everything that happened. I completely agree. Sometimes a clean break is the best way to heal, even if it's tough for the kids. They'll adjust in time, just like you did, OP. Not the a-hole. As a social worker, my heart hurts for the child who lost an adult she was attached to because of her mother's actions. She's not your responsibility, of course, but if you haven't already, you might consider having a conversation with her to answer any questions she might have before completely disappearing from her life. Maybe the mother should answer those questions, since she's the one who made the effort to cheat, not once, but twice. It's not his responsibility to explain to her daughter why her mom couldn't stay faithful. The mom needs to take accountability for her actions and explain them to her daughter. Never date a single mother. It only benefits her. I'm 48. I don't have anything in common with girls in their 20s, and women in my age range all have kids. So, never date again? Spend some time by yourself and decide on the characteristics you want in a potential partner. Don't rush things. Get to know her. In all honesty, based on Reddit, it sounds like most men cheat. I've honestly wondered if there are men in the world who want to be monogamous. Anyway, not everyone is the same. You just haven't met your person yet. Don't shut down your heart. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad he's a better stepdad than dad, and I won't stick around to watch if it keeps happening? My 16 female dad isn't the worst dad ever or anything. He works to provide for me. He wishes me happy birthday every year and says he loves me sometimes. He buys me gifts for Christmas and my birthday, and he takes me to the doctor if I need to go, or used to, but he's never spent any time with me. When Mom was alive, he never felt the need to, I guess, since I had her. After she died, he wasn't there to comfort me or anything. That was left to a few different family members on both sides of my family. When he got married again, he made a bigger effort with his stepkids, 13 female and 10 male. He's been married for over 4 years now, and it takes his stepkids out one-on-one. He goes camping with them, takes them for pizza and ice cream after school on Fridays, and take them to football games or local plays. He still doesn't do the same with me. I've never spent quality time with my dad, but for over 4 years, more like 5 counting the time he was dating his wife, I've been forced to watch him to do better for her kids. His wife has tried to take over as the parent for me, but I don't want her to. While I'm civil, I haven't worked on us being close because I don't want to. I've instead tried to get him to be a better dad to me and failed. His wife has asked why I don't let her to be the mom I need, and I told her I don't want her or a new mom. I want my dad to be the parent I need instead of being that to her kids, who aren't even his. My dad's stepdaughter wants me to be her big sister, but my focus has been on dad. I haven't worked on building a relationship with either of his stepkids. I'm nice. I don't ignore them if they talk to me, but none of these relationships are going to happen if my dad decides he's never going to step up for me. We had a talk a few days ago. His stepdaughter had been really disappointed I wouldn't go to a concert with her, and Dad wanted to talk to me about it. I finally opened up to him and told him everything I feel and how I see it. I even pointed out that it was the most he had ever said to me, maybe ever, and it was to tell me his family was hurting because I didn't accept them. I asked him when he had taken me for pizza and ice cream, camping, or to watch something, anything. He started to say it was different, and I told him it wasn't really. I said they have their mom, just like I had mine for 8 years, but he still saw a need to be there for them and not me. I told him it hurt, and I told him his wife isn't making up for that if he won't even try to be a good dad. He told me I should see why he needed to bond with his stepkids and make them his, not just stepkids. I told him a bond wasn't automatic, just because he was always present in some way in my life. I said he never cared about our connection. I told him to face facts. He's a better stepdad than he is a dad. I said if that's how things will stay, fine, but I'm going to keep my distance and leave as soon as I can. I said I'm not going to stick around and watch this anymore if that's how things will be. I told him I'd become estranged and lean on family, the real family who care about me. He didn't say anything else and walked away, but the next day, he told me it was unfair to claim he is a better stepdad and that I judged him too harshly. His wife said I'm behaving spitefully by refusing to join her and her kids as a family because of dad's actions. Am I the a-hole? I think you telling him and how you told him was the right thing to do. Now it's up to him, though his reaction the next day clearly points to gaslighting you. He wants to please his new wife by cajoling the stepkids. He either takes you for granted or doesn't care very much about you. His response in the next few days will tell you which of the two is true. Totally. I'm not hopeful that he'll come around, but at least I know and can move on for good and stop trying. It was so brave of you to communicate honestly with your dad. I'm sorry he's such a flaming a-hole. You certainly aren't one. The fact that he walked away just means that he does not care. You were better off without him. You were not the a-hole, and that sucks. That's how I took it too, or at least that he doesn't care enough. Honey, I'm so very sorry your dad is this way. You deserve a dad who chooses you. Can you propose family counseling between just you and him? Maybe a therapist will be able to get through to him. I could, but I won't. I'm done trying after this. This is all up to him now. Am I the a-hole for sending a recording of my ex asking to open our relationship to her parents? I, male 26, broke up with my girlfriend of 4 years, Mary, female 27, about a month ago because she asked me to open our relationship. It is /was/ and always will be a major line in the sand for me, something that I have opened up to her about in the past. We've had a great relationship, and the only thing that stands out, and the only reason it stands out now is because of this situation, is she progressively started making a lot more sexual jokes about some of our shared friends over the last few months. Some involved her being with them, and others were three-way jokes, etc. I won't lie, I played along a little, but I consistently made some joking response along the lines of, "You're more than enough for me," and or, "I don't like sharing." Never took any of it seriously because why would I? Until she asked, and I found out / realized that she was probably trying to gauge my response and see how open I was. Mary asked when we were getting ready for bed about a month ago kind of bluntly. I was scrolling on my phone and she was getting changed and goes, "If I ask you to open the relationship, would you?" This might sound super corny, but it was like I had an out-of-body experience and all of the above hit me at once. All the jokes and comments so far made sense, in a she's trying to butter me up to the idea kind of way, and went really numb for a second. To her credit, she must have seen how freaked out I was and asked if I was okay. I pretended I didn't hear her and asked her to repeat herself, and she was really hesitant too. Kept saying she didn't say anything and only repeated it when I insisted. Then I went to voice notes, set it to record, and put my phone down to talk to her. I don't remember much of it, just that I tried to stay calm and keep her talking. But the note is just over an hour and a half long, and it feels like I'm listening in to a conversation that happened between two strangers. She trickled truth all the way through it, and ultimately stuck to the idea that she hadn't been cheating. She didn't have any one person in mind, but had been fantasizing about mutual friends and people at work, and seemed to get the idea that they'd be open to something if she asked. A lot of it is her being defensive and me trying to needle information out of her without it escalating into an argument. A lot of me placating her and trying to make her feel comfortable enough to keep talking. The apartment is mine, and I suggested we take a break a few nights later, so she went to stay with a friend for a weekend. By the next Monday, I'd spoken to some of my friends and my sister separately and come to the conclusion that we were done. and suggested she started looking for somewhere else to stay. She was upset, but didn't really argue and had the vast majority of her stuff out and at her parents' at the end of the week. So coming 2 days ago, her mom reached out over WhatsApp to say she was disappointed in how I handled everything. The message wasn't really framed in a way that she was reprimanding me, more that she wished we could have worked it out. She then added me to a group chat with her husband, ex's stepdad, and they both kinda tag-teamed me, saying that we could work it out. I was making a mistake and that I shouldn't overthink things. I eventually got it out of them that my ex had fed them a very vague story that we had broken up because she'd wanted to take the next step in our relationship, and that I'd freaked out. We'd argued and she'd been effectively kicked out. Her stepdad was leaning on the fact that he thought I was more mature than this, and her mom just kept repeating how disappointing this whole situation was. So I was pissed. In the heat of the moment, I told them that I had a recording of our conversation that I could send that would explain what she actually meant about taking the next step. I initially tried to email it to them, but it was being a ball ache, so I eventually shared it via Drive. In the meantime, I took a few screenshots of my ex and I's messages, ones where she made jokes and comments about sex with our friends and a lady from her office, and sent them along to that shared group chat. I haven't heard back since. Again, it's been 2 days, and I don't feel as vindicated anymore. A good few of my ex's comments were about other women, and I'm freaking out because I don't know how, if at all, open she's been about her sexuality with them. I also think I shouldn't have engaged at all, and I shouldn't have felt the need to prove my innocence to either of them. Am I the a-hole? I've checked in with friends and over social media, and it doesn't look like there has been any fallout. Also, my ex blocked me a week ago before I spoke to her parents, so I can't really contact her without going in person. And at this point, is it too late to even give her a heads up or check in? Edit. To address a few points I have seen in multiple comments. We don't live in the US, and we have no laws on recording private conversations on the books. I am not proud of doing it, but it wasn't illegal. Mary and I had several mature, calm conversations about what we both wanted out of this relationship. Mary wasn't sure if she wanted to stay, and kind of admitted to self-sabotaging by opening the relationship. Mary and I have been friends since we were 11. Her mom was my coach when I swam competitively, and our friend group and families are very close and intermingled, so she was wary about what would happen if we went on a break or fully broke up. I was not trying to punish her for being open to polyamory. Now for the top comments. You're defending yourself because she couldn't be honest and unleashed her parents on you. Any results are her responsibility, not the a-hole. I don't think she intentionally sicked her parents on me, but I also feel like I don't even know who she really is at this point. I also don't like the feeling of just making things difficult for her, even though she's clearly still telling half-truths. Maybe she didn't intentionally and specifically tell them to contact you, but the fact they did means she gave them a story implying you were at fault at best. The fact they could just randomly message you means you were close enough to them that you could and did comfortably speak to each other. Combining these facts make it entirely predictable that they would contact you in this situation. Whether by intent or lazy incompetence, it still comes down to being her responsibility. If you had contacted them, I'd vote very differently, but you didn't. Yeah, let's not play dumb here. She was covering her cheating butt with her parents. Honey, why did Opie break up with you? Mom, basically because I was asking him permission to cheat. Permission to cheat? Yes, I asked for an open relationship because I wanted to go bang other dudes and some girls too. That's the reality. She was not going to tell her parents, so she used her ex-boyfriend as the villain and scapegoat. But you, have to give her the benefit of the doubt, even after she nuked her own relationship of years because she wanted to sleep with other people. Well, she should have ended the relationship and go do it, not expect he was going to be there waiting for her to sleep with other guys and be happy about it. You're not the a-hole for feeling the need to defend yourself against your ex's lies to her parents, but sharing the recording and screenshots was probably not the best approach. I don't think they would have believed him otherwise. I don't think so either, but now that I have a clearer head, I can see how I could have handled this better than I did. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my 23 female boyfriend 24 that it's his fault if he misses our flight and that I'll continue without him? My boyfriend and I planned a trip for the end of the summer months ago. Last night, we were still trying to decide how we'd get to the airport when my mom told me that she could take us before work. I told my boyfriend who lives 30 minutes from my house to be at my house no later than 6 a.m. for my mother to drive us to the airport at 6:15. He promised that he would be there around 5:45. This morning, he was nowhere to be seen or heard from until around 6:20. He told me that his phone fell and he didn't hear it. By then, my mom had to leave and take just me or she'd be late to work. I told him that he should drive to the airport or get an Uber. His mom decides that she will drive him an hour to the airport since he was too late for my mom to take us. He gets to the airport a little after me and I checked in our bags. We get to the bag drop and he realizes he does not have his ID. His wallet is at his house, which is about an hour from the airport. I tell him that I'm going to continue to TSA and go to the gate. His mom is going back to get his wallet, which will obviously take a while. I tell him that I'm getting on the flight regardless, and that if he misses it, then it's a result of his own mishaps. He then begins to ask me what to do if he misses it. I tell him that he's an adult and should figure out a way to make it to our destination by contacting customer service. I planned everything for the trip down to the flights and travel arrangements. I feel like at this point, I've done all I can to do to ensure a successful and smooth trip, and I don't feel as if it's my responsibility to do damage control for him if he misses the flight. There is no refund for the Airbnb that we split the price for if we do not go. Am I the a-hole for continuing without him? Not a-hole. Boyfriend needs to grow up and act like an adult. You've done all the work up to this point. All he had to do was show up on time with a proper ID to make it through security, and couldn't do that. He needed mom to bail him out. If he misses the flight, it's a good opportunity for him to learn about what consequences are, and to sort out his own issues for himself. For OP, his reaction will tell you a lot about him. If he does miss the flight and has to figure things out himself, does he get mad at you or pout? Or does he own up to his own mistakes and accept responsibilities/apologize for causing these issues? I agree. First, it was the not waking up on time, and he couldn't even remember to double-check for his wallet? I give him grace, but that's just something I can't understand. Traveling with children sucks. Not a-hole. Traveling with children is less hassle than traveling with this guy. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to pay child support after my wife cheated with my older brother? I never thought my life would end up like this, but here we are. I've been married to my wife for 5 years. After we tied a knot, I didn't really keep in touch with my family much. It wasn't intentional, we just drifted apart. My wife and I were focused on building our own lives, and that's what mattered to me. A few months ago, my world came crashing down. I found out my wife had been having an affair with my older brother. The betrayal was like a punch to the gut. I didn't even know how to process it. Everything I thought was solid in my life was suddenly shattered. But it got worse. When I told my mom what happened, she didn't react the way I expected. Instead of supporting me, she took my brother aside. She actually told me to get over it and said that this is just how life is sometimes. Hearing that from my own mother was like salt in the wound. Since then, I've cut contact with my brother and haven't spoken to my mom much either. Now, my wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife, has come to me with another bombshell. She's pregnant and says the baby is mine. Here's the thing, I can't even be sure. We were still being intimate even as things started falling apart between us, so it's possible. But after everything she's done, I don't know what to believe anymore. She's already talking about how I'll need to pay child support, saying that I have no choice if the baby is mine. I'm not stupid. I know what my legal responsibilities are. But I can't bring myself to just accept this without knowing for sure. I want a paternity test before I commit to anything. But even if the baby is mine, part of me feels like it's so unfair that I'm stuck supporting someone who betrayed me in the worst way possible. My mom says I need to be a man and just move on, but I'm really struggling with this. How can I be expected to just accept all of this like it's no big deal? So, am I the a-hole for wanting to confirm that the baby is actually mine before agreeing to pay child support? And even if it is mine, would I be wrong for feeling like I shouldn't have to be tied to her forever after what she did? Now for the top comments. You need to confirm that the child is indeed yours because of the events circulating around your ex's pregnancy. However, if it is yours, then you need to pay the child support. And also don't hold grudges against your kid. It's your kid, after all, and your kid has nothing to do with the horrible decisions people around you have made. You're not the a-hole here, unless you don't pay the child support. I'd start the procedures for paternity test immediately and start talking to a lawyer about what you should be doing and not doing. I know everything's hurting, but you're gonna hurt a lot more in the pocket, on top of your mental turmoil, if you do not talk to a lawyer and get things rolling. Also, because your brother presumably shares DNA with you, he needs to be tested too. The difference will likely be very small, unless your mother has a surprise coming. Might be why mom was so okay with it. She's probably a cheater too. Get the divorce first, then go with her to the doctor to prove she's pregnant, then have the tests done to determine paternity. First things first before making any decisions. Personally, I wouldn't even talk to her about anything until after the baby is born. Get started now on your new life and say goodbye to mom, your brother, and your ex. Good luck. Married women sometimes can't get divorced while they are pregnant. It's also often given that the husband is legally considered to be the father of any child born during a marriage. So it's lawyer time to get the necessary info for OP's state and state situation, assuming US. There are a bunch of people in here that don't know what they are talking about, including OP, in thinking that not paying child support is an option if the kid is his, and mom winds up being granted primary custody. OP needs to talk to a lawyer because they can clear up a bunch of the stuff that he is worrying about, some of which is likely needless. Source: I'm a lawyer. Also, who continues sleeping with their wife after they learn she cheated and their marriage is falling apart? God, what a dumbass. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my cheating ex-girlfriend that I'm not responsible for her abortion? I, 30 male, had been dating Anna, 29 female, for a few years. Now, our relationship wasn't picture perfect, but we were happy, or at least I thought. Well, when she told me she was pregnant, I was surprised because I always wrap it up and make sure to pull out. Double caution, I know. So I was confused, but I guess it can happen. Well, she told me she wanted to keep the baby. I am financially secure, and although it took me by surprise, I surprisingly found myself open to the idea of raising a child with her. Well, a few weeks go by and I catch her out in a lie and find out that she had been cheating on me for months with someone. She comes clean. I was furious and immediately questioned whether I was the father. Though, to be honest, it wasn't even that. I just didn't want to have a kid with a cheater, even if it was mine. I only want to have a kid if I'm going to stay with that person and fully trust them. My trust was broken. She cried and begged me to stay, so I told her I would maybe consider it if she aborted. She then cried again and said she wanted to keep the baby. But I said, you either choose this baby, who probably isn't mine, or you choose me. Well, she chose me and aborted. And then tried my best to move past what happened, even going as far as to go couples counseling with her. But I still couldn't move past it. So I told her, in spite of my efforts, I can't trust her and that I'm breaking up with her. She freaked out and said I forced her to get the procedure, that I'm evil, all sorts of names. The thing is, I never forced her, and she cheated. And that baby wasn't likely mine, so it's not my issue. Though even if it was, I would be with a cheater, which I can't accept. Am I the a-hole for this? I tried to reconcile with her. It didn't work. You should have just left in the first place. Agree. Now he has certainty that she won't come after him throughout her pregnancy, as I bet the affair partner would have done a runner when he got the news. I'm betting he already had, which is why she came back to OP for support. Ultimately, she's the a-hole. However, you knew what you were doing. I don't believe for one second that you were ever planning on staying with her. You were looking out for yourself, because there was at least a possibility that you were the father. As you said, you didn't want to have a baby with someone who you had no plans on being with. Therefore, you played a game and convinced her to abort. The decision was ultimately her own, but you knew what you were doing. I fully support tricking women into getting abortions if they cheated, so you're not tied to this person for the next 18 years. Hey, as long as you own it, I'm just saying he needs to stop acting like he didn't have a plan. Just own it. Am I the a-hole for kicking out my vegan sister after she threw away my dog Edai's food? So a few weeks ago, my sister broke up with a longtime boyfriend of 3 years. They lived together, so I opened my home to her and let her stay until she got back on her feet. She's a hardcore vegan, and while I don't care about her dietary choices, I do not believe she should push it on others the way she does so heavily. So anyways, a few days into her staying at my home, I got home from work to see my fridge was almost empty. I thought maybe she had cleaned the fridge for me, but just 2 days ago I went shopping and bought things like bacon, steak, etc. to make my lunches. I went into her room and I asked her what happened to all my food. I figured it was just some sort of mistake, but she informed me that she purposefully cleansed my life of all the dead animals I eat in the street. At first, I didn't even believe it, but then it spiraled into a huge argument where she slammed the door in my face. In my own home. I called my mother to let her know what was going on and to get her opinion, where I ended up getting a scolding for how I treated my sister, and how I should know she is going through a lot. At that point, I just hung up because obviously I'm not going to be happy when $50 worth of food is just thrown out for no good reason. Despite this, I figured I would appease my other family members and let her stay, but I let her know she was on thin ice with me. The following day I fed my dog and went to work. I told her she was not to touch any of my belongings or throw anything away or I would kick her out. She protested, but I told her I was serious and left. When I returned home, my dog's bowl was empty, so I went to refill it in case he was hungry again later on. When I go to get the food, it's gone. I barged into her room and asked her what's the deal with the food being missing. She said she threw out my dog's food and fed him bread instead. My dog isn't even supposed to have gluten. It makes him itchy. She then got in my face telling me the dogs are happier living a vegan lifestyle. I told her my dog would be happier with her living a lifestyle outside of my home, and told her she had 8 hours to get her stuff and go to my mother's. I went out to buy more dog food, and once I returned, not only was her room a wreck, but my dog was gone. I called my mother to explain the situation, and asked if she had a dog with her, and she exploded on me again about how awful I was for not supporting my sister, and that the dog was not at the house with her. A mutual friend of ours let me know she had a dog at my mother's house. However, my mother and sister continued to spin the story to our family, and now they all refuse to speak to me, especially since I had the police help me retrieve him. Am I the a-hole for not letting my sister stay in my home despite pushing her vegan lifestyle on me and my pet? Edit. I was starting to feel conflicted on if I really was being sick and overdramatic for kicking out my sister in need, or if my family really does just enable her. And just to be clear, the dog is safe. I made sure to note it got the police involved, and the dog is currently with me. Edit 2. For more clarification, since people keep asking, my sister and mother only have a 15-year age difference. They're more like friends than mother and daughter. My mother would do anything to please her. I, on the other hand, was born after my father died, and my mother held some sort of resentment to me, which is why I left the home at 18, while my sister stayed until 22 years of age. I didn't have much contact for a while, but when I heard she needed help, I thought this would mend things. Obviously, it did not. It made my relationship with my family worse. They are both vegan, and it also seems they told other family members that I shoved or hit her, which never happened. I am considering fully cutting ties. However, I am worried since she knows my home address. Edit 3. She didn't stay at my mother's because she was housing my aunt and her children for Thanksgiving, which of course I was not invited to. I saw my sister on Facebook saying she needed a place to stay, and this whole big long sob story, so I took her in. Now for the top comments. Not stay home. Crazy vegan breakdown aside, someone who messes with your dog is someone not worth being around. Holy cow. As a vegan, the sister is a complete and total a-hole. She seems desperate to gain control after her breakup, and is misusing her ethical stance to exert control in her new environment. It's not about animal welfare, it's about being in charge. I don't like the meat aisle, but I don't damage the grocery store in a fit of rage. The sister and the mom need to buzz off. Can I be pressed charges for dog napping? Not stay home. Dogs are happier vegans. Dogs are naturally carnivorous. Your sister doesn't know squat. She had no right to touch anything of yours in your own home. Some nerve. Think we know why her relationship broke down. There's a huge case of entitlement and narcissism here. She believes her beliefs and circumstances allow her complete control of her environment when she's a guest, and in complete contradiction of being a good guest. She dog-napped an innocent doggo. It's obvious where she was enabled, the people who are defending her. Next story. Am I the a-hole for calling my wife selfish and ungrateful when she suggested we cut back on saving for our son's college, rather than spending for her entertainment? I, male 29, work full-time to support my son, 15 months old, and wife, 28. She's unemployed but is a stay-at-home mom and we're both happy with that, usually. Recently, money's been tight as I haven't been bringing as much home. I work in sales on commission, so I've been trying to figure out how to make ends meet while looking for a better job. We spend about $60 a month on a 4 to 5 streaming services, HBO/Netflix, etc. And my wife spends about $50 a month in mobile games, and over $100 in ordering lunch through Uber Eats. I wouldn't mind if we could afford it, but right now we can't. When I brought up cutting back, she said streaming services and mobile games were the only breaks she had from working at keeping up the house and caring for our son, and ordering out made lunchtime a break instead of more work for her. I asked her to please stop ordering out and to get rid of some of the streaming services or the mobile games. She said that's silly, and it was the hair dye and teeth whitening I pay for that was why we're short each month, and I shouldn't be so vain and to give this up for the family. I spend about $150 for them every few months, and if it was just me that'd be one thing, but I get both done for work. Believe me, I wish it wasn't the case, but people are just more open and friendly with me when I'm not a ginger dude with brown teeth. I don't want to have to do it, but I feel I have to, so I'm on a level playing field. I said she had plenty of time to relax when I got home, since I always cook and clean up after dinner and take care of our son until bedtime. She told me that doesn't mean anything when she can't do the things she enjoys, as if she didn't enjoy spending time with me, and that we would have plenty of money if I didn't put $200 a month away for our son's college fund. I reminded her we agreed to this before our son was born, and that if we didn't keep at it, we weren't going to have enough when he turns 18. She said we didn't even know if he wanted to go to college yet, and that I had no idea how hard it was raising a child. I have plenty experience feeding and changing diapers, and that our work at home is just as stressful as my job, if not more. I might be the a-hole already, but this is the part that really stuck with me. I said she was ungrateful for the work I was doing, and selfish to think of her own entertainment over providing for our son. She snapped back at me that I was being abusive both emotionally and by trying to withhold money. And at that point, I was just floored and walked out. I'm hiding away in my home office now. She's never said anything like that to me before. And to be honest, I don't really know what she means as far as withholding money, since I've always given her what she asks for, as far as I can remember. Is it really abusive to cut back on spending? Did I go too far? Edit. I wasn't very clear on the Uber Eats thing, so for people asking questions, I don't know exactly how much it is, as I haven't ever added it all up, but it's 3 times a week, so between $100 and $400 a month. Also, I appreciate you all for taking time to share your thoughts. Not day home. $50 in mobile games a month? The heck is that all about? There are games you can buy for $10 and play for hundreds of hours. Introduce her to Stardew Valley or Minecraft or something. Uber Eats is just a goddamn scam. Get rid of that BS immediately. Tell her to rotate streaming services. I doubt she's watching HBO, Disney+, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, and Hulu, enough each month to make each of them worth it each month. I rotate them on a monthly basis. 1 month is HBO month, next is Hulu month, next is Disney month, etc. Don't sacrifice your kid's future for you or your wife's momentary pleasure. Not today home. Get rid of Uber Eats. That one is fair. You bring a lunch to work and so does your wife. Uber Eats is such an expensive and so unnecessary. Deleting the app saved me money. No, you're not abusive and she should apologize for saying that. You're trying to keep the family financially afloat, not blocking her access to money. Tell her half the game's gotta go, but the streaming services are needed as a parent. How else do you drown out your children screaming and playing? There are games that don't cost money monthly. You cut back too. Also, if being a stay-at-home mom is too much for her, she can go to work 40 hours a week and cover daycare. I appreciate how hard staying home can be, but sometimes that extra $400 to $500 a month they can make above and beyond childcare costs can be a night and day difference to household finances. Plus, she gets time out of the house. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for confronting my friend and ruining our kids' friendship? Okay, I'll try to keep this short. So I have this BFF, 40s female, that is man-hungry. She picks these men who are all sorts of wrong, is a serial wife, and legit flip-flops from one ex back to the other, and plays them against each other. She constantly comes for advice, and I've gotten to the point of telling her that I think she's making a mistake, but I'll support her no matter what. I always felt she's a good person and means well, but kinda screwed up in a few things. No big deal. She has 2 kids my kid's age and they were super close. We were like a little family. We were always together. She randomly last minute asked me over summer to watch one of her kids for a week due to some work conference. I was in the middle of a house renovation and sharing a room with my kid. I wanted to help, but it was impossible. I felt awful and I told her no. But then I tried to help by seeing if the conference she was going to had a Zoom option, which is when I found out there was no conference at all. She was very specific with immense detail that then proved easy to double-check. Her ex lived in a neighboring state. I never told her I knew, but then she kept giving me details of her trip that proved that she was in fact going to a state and not where she said. She texted at the airport, she texted me about events in real time, and none of it was true. I was super disappointed that she lied and tried to manipulate me with a working single mom angle instead of just being honest. But in the end, I decided to never let her know that I knew. She kept lying about the trip after the fact too, which pissed me off, but I tried to big picture it that our kids were besties. And she was probably embarrassed, so just let it go. Flash forward a few weeks to her wanting to get her kids some passes for something that we had passes for. But my passes were restricted, so I had one last day to upgrade them so we could go together. I spoke to her a lot about the cost, made sure she was buying them, then upgraded to the tune of $300. Every time I tried to make plans, there was some lame excuse. Then she started pulling away, canceling plans, etc. Every time I tried to make plans for these tickets, there would be another excuse. Like one kid's birthday. Let's use our ticks. No, they're grounded. Then she takes an impromptu road trip with them to the zoo and posts it on Facebook. Gave me some lame excuse that it was last minute. Whatever. Final straw was she canceled for my kid's birthday party. She said her kids were sick. Then I see them on Facebook at the beach. So finally, I confronted her and told her I was upset she lied about the party. She then said, I'm not a liar. To which I then just snapped and unleashed a barrage of, like the passes you said you bought? Like the conference that you never went to, etc. We never spoke again, and now our kids don't either. I feel so badly that this mom drama ruined our kids' friendship. Am I the a-hole for confronting her? Edited to add. Time frame was we were friends for years, and the trip lie to my kid's birthday was roughly a month and a half. Not the a-hole. Your kids will make new friends, and so will you. I do feel sad that I was so wrong about her, and truly cared for her and was there for her in many different ways that were outside my comfort zone. But I have a full life, and cutting someone out when I'm done is pretty much my go-to. I have another friend who pretty much gets past everything with everyone, and they all find a way to heal and move on. I don't know how to do that, and sometimes I wonder if I should learn. But ultimately, I really don't want to. Wondering if it's healthier? I don't know. I'm probably overthinking it. Not a-hole. She's a fake and a flake. You probably saved your kids heartache later on. You'll probably find out that they didn't like this woman or her kids all that much. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my boss no to working weekends when my coworkers don't? I got hired for this salary job where they really hyped up the work-life balance and reasonable hours and job interview. Like the way that they never expect people to stay late or work on weekends or holidays. That turned out to be BS. My boss got my personal phone number off my resume from when I applied, and after not long, he was blowing up my phone on nights and weekends, asking me to come work. I'd always not answer. Then when he'd ask on Monday why I wasn't answering my phone, I'd pull out my work phone like, sorry, are you sure you had the right number? I'm not seeing any missed calls. I'd often say called my own cell, so I'd say that I don't really use it much. I leave it home a lot. And when I do check, I've usually got like 40 missed calls. And my voicemail is always full, so I probably miss stuff unless I'm expecting a call at a certain time. And that if he needs to reach me, he should try my work phone because I'm very careful to follow up on any call to that within one business day. He asked me how he could reach me outside of 9 to 5, because he sees I leave my work phone on my desk at night and over the weekend. I said that honestly, I'm not glued to any phone on the weekend, so if he needs me to take a call on the weekend, could he make it a meeting request and put it on my calendar, so I know to be available? Or if I know I won't be available to take a call, I can suggest an alternate time to call. He said that wasn't really gonna work for him. More often things come up last minute, and when he calls people on the weekend, it wasn't planned. And that is not calling for a teleconference meeting. He's calling asking people to come in. I said that on the weekends I usually have commitments that were made 1 to 3 weeks out, and I'm not often able to cancel a previous commitment with under a day notice. So if he needs me in on a weekend, it'd be best if he could schedule that 3 weeks out, so that I know not to make conflicting plans. He said that wasn't possible, and I said okay. He could try and reach out and I'd answer the phone if I heard it ringing, but I wasn't always on the phone, so I might not catch it always. Anyway, I've gone back to ignoring his calls, and my coworkers have gotten kind of frustrated with me, saying that coming in on weekends is part of the job, and that I wasn't pulling my weight. I said that I don't know what job they signed on for, but in my job interview, I was promised regular hours, and took my pay based on regular hours. So I'm working regular hours. My coworkers got frustrated, and said that if everyone did what I was doing, nothing would get done. I said maybe nothing should get done then, if it's coming at the cost of y'all not being home for dinner with the family. I don't really think my coworkers see it as an option to say no, so they're angry at me because I'm doing it and they're not comfortable doing it. Am I the a-hole for not working evenings or weekends? Not the a-hole, but I'd start looking for a new job. This is the answer. I oftentimes don't get why people come to the sub with the work stuff. I mean, some interpersonal issues between people at the same level make sense. But when people have issues with their boss, or the company, or HR, or something, I just don't get it. Because you can be not the a-hole all day, and it means absolutely nothing, since you're still the one who is going to lose the battle. And I hope you will absolutely lose this one, bearing them being so great at their job that they're irreplaceable, which is unlikely. Not the a-hole, but be prepared to be fired soon. Your coworkers and boss are going to be looking for any reason to get you in trouble. And if you are on probation, expect to be let go. I know it sucks, but that's the way these companies bootlickers work. Good on you standing your ground, and shame on the company for lying to you about the job.